This is Indian Country Today.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Trahant. Here are the headlines from Indian Country Today. The Bemidji City Council in northern Minnesota just got more indigenous. Dan Jourdain, who is Red Lake Ojibwe, won a special election by defeating former council member and Mayor Dave Larson. Jourdain received 524 votes to Larson's 410 votes in an at-large council seat race. In November, the general election, Jourdain came in second to Larson by less than 400 votes in a race where the two top vote getters advanced. With the win, Jourdain joins a 7-person council that includes his mentor and friend Audrey Thayer, who is White Earth Ojibwe. Thayer herself was elected in November. Jourdain says it was daunting growing up in Bemidji.
It goes to show no matter who you are, if you work hard, good things will eventually occur.
Jourdain and Thayer are part of a recent wave of Indigenous candidates seeking public office in the Bemidji area. 2 other candidates ran for council and 2 ran for county commission. Tim Sumner, who is Red Lake Ojibwe, was re-elected to that 5-person commission in November. And last week, Representative Jasmine Blackwater Nygren was sworn in at the Arizona State Capitol. Her appointment comes after incumbent Democrat Orlando Teller resigned to join the Biden administration. Blackwater Nygren is Dene, and at 25, she is the youngest member serving in the modern era. Indian Country Today correspondent Karina Dominguez talked to the new lawmaker earlier this week about who she is and what she stands for.
It's humbling, to say the least. I'm very honored to be here in this capacity.
She's a Dene woman from Red Mesa, Arizona, and was sworn into office by federal judge Diane Humitiwa, who is Hopi. Former state representative Orlando Teller, who was also Dene, vacated the seat last month to accept a position with the Biden administration as Deputy Assistant Secretary for Tribal Affairs in the U.S. Department of Transportation. She will finish out Teller's term, which ends in January of 2023, and already has future plans of running for the House and Senate. Blackwater Nygren also wants to strengthen healthcare, education, and voting rights while in office. After being sworn in, she went straight to work. In Phoenix, Karina Dominguez, Indian Country Today.
And now let's turn to the world of video games. For most kids, Minecraft is a game they play to unwind after school. But thanks to a new program at the Louis Riel School Division, kids can now play it during school hours. The school division in Winnipeg is using the game Minecraft to teach students about Manitoba's Anishinaabe culture. It's a first-of-its-kind tool that uses an education version of the game. The program was made thanks to a partnership between Microsoft's Canada, Minecraft Education Edition, and Louis Riel. Students are able to enter the virtual world of Manito Abiaki, meaning the place where the creator sits, to learn and explore an Ojibwe community. School Superintendent Christian Mikulik hopes the game also helps in a small way move forward the truth and reconciliation calls to action in classrooms in Manitoba and across Canada. Students learn teachings about tobacco, navigating directions using the sun, moon, and stars, and eventually take a canoe ride to where they set up a community and take part in a bison hunt. Creating the game took 14 months of development with stakeholders located in Canada, the United States, and Australia. The school sought the help of numerous knowledge keepers and Indigenous elders in the development of the game. Anishinaabe elder and grandmother Chickadee Richard says the game is a chance to show everyone what Anishinaabe culture is about.
I believe that our stories have to be told from our perspective. With this project, I believe that you'll have an insight of something that's still intact in our communities.
The Anishinaabe digital world includes flora, fauna, and locations from Manitoba that were especially created for this world and did not exist in any other Minecraft property. The non-playable characters in the game are also unique and modeled after Chickadee, as well as 2 school staff members and 3 Anishinaabe knowledge keepers from Manitoba. The school division hopes to have 5 other worlds for each Indigenous peoples in Manitoba. The world of Manito Abiaki has officially launched and is ready for download at aka.ms. And those are the headlines from Indian Country Today. I'm Mark Trahant. When we come back, how natives turn to traditions to face issues today.
This is Indian Country Today.
The coronavirus has been devastating for Native communities, particularly the Navajo Nation, where a family is using photography and dance for healing. Award-winning Navajo photographer Eugene Tapahi created the Jingle Dress Project. The goal is simple: to take the healing power of the jingle dress dance to the land. They travel to spiritual places where the ancestors once walked and take pictures to promote healing. He travels with 4 dancers. One of them is his daughter, Erin Tapahi. They join us today.
In May, my aunt, my mom's sister, actually passed away from COVID. And at that time, as an artist, I do my work. I'm a full-time artist as a photographer. And so by that time, all of the shows for the whole year were canceled. And so how I make my living, and then having the pandemic personally affect our family, really made it really hard for us to decide, what our future was going to be during this pandemic. And it was a really great time, but at the same time, it was very depressing because, we were going through a lot of hardship. And when we actually realized how much the pandemic affected Native people personally, we realized that there were a lot more people going through what we went through with my aunt. In one sense, when my aunt passed away, we couldn't bury her within the traditional Navajo way of being able to celebrate her life, and then also burying her within 4 days. And not only that, because the pandemic was so early, the regulations of burial, they were burying all the people who contracted the virus. They were all burying them in the same location at the grave sites. So we couldn't even bury our aunt, in our family plot. And so it was really hard for us, and it really frustrated me and made me really upset about what was happening. And so it was really, I think for me, the way this project started was in a dream. So I had went to sleep, and in my dream, I was in a place where I find peace all the time, is at Yellowstone National Park. I was actually, in my dream, I was sitting in a field of green grass and watching bison graze in the sunset. And as the sun started going down, I was sitting in the grass, and all of a sudden I heard the jingles from Jingle Dresses. And out of the sides of my view, all these Jingle Dress dancers started coming onto the grass, and they just started dancing. And to me at the time, it looked like they were dancing with the bison. But this peace and this hope and this feeling of healing actually overcame me. So I said, if we could get 4 girls and they can represent the 4 worlds in our photos, then we could probably go out and do this. And so we did. We were able to get Erin and Dion's close friends, Joannie and Sunny Begay. And so we all got together, and it was kind of hard because I'm not a portrait landscape. I'm a landscape photographer. I'm not a portrait photographer. So, and the girls aren't professional models, and they're jingle dress dancers, but they're not models. And so when we first got to our first photo shoot, it was really, really hard for us because we were trying to make it mesh and trying to make it work. But after we set up to dance the first jingle dress dance out on the Bonneville Salt Flats here in Utah, and that's Paiute and Shoshone and Ute land, native land. The girls danced, and it was just beautiful. It was just like this overwhelming spiritual feeling came over us that, in fact, some of us were in tears because it was just so emotional. It really felt like we weren't the only ones there. Like we felt like our ancestors were there when we were dancing. And it was just an overcoming feeling. And when it was done, we were just like, this project, has to get done. It has to be done, because it just felt like it needed to be done. And so I'll let Erin kind of explain that first feeling.
Yeah, so that first feeling, it was awkward, but then also like, because we're jingle dress dancers, and so it felt really weird to be dancing, like to be like in the dresses, but then to be taking photos in them. But then when we danced, it felt really like exhilarating, but then also like really powerful, because me and my sister, the day before, we ran a marathon, and we were really worried that our feet and our bodies weren't going to be able to with like keep us dancing the whole song. But then as we were dancing, I felt that like my body was healing, and it was just a really great time. And there was this feeling of like, this is what we're supposed to do. This is where we're meant to be in this moment in time. So it was really special.
I asked Eugene what it was like taking the project on the road.
Because it is the pandemic, we didn't want people to get involved in it, because we didn't want people to think also that travel was safe. And so when we went out and we went to our destinations, we went on our own. We camped, and we made our own food, and we stayed away from people. We just stayed quarantined as much as we could by ourselves. And so we didn't let anybody know where we were going. In fact, when we post on social media, we didn't let people know where we were at. We just showed pictures of the girls close-ups, so they didn't know the locations. But it just took off once they heard about our project, and went into a point. It went so far to where Minnesota, where the Ojibwe jingle dress dance, it originated back in 1918, 1917, when the first pandemic during the influenza, the Spanish flu. The Mille Lacs people, the reservation there, they contacted us, and they asked us to come and come to dance where the jingle dress originated. So we actually did that. We went out to Minnesota, and we met up with a historian. Her name is Brenda Childs, and she was the one that was able to coordinate things and ask us to come out. And so it was really, in that sense, it was really great. We were really excited about it, because the Ojibwe people, and we're Navajo, all four of us, and all of us are Navajo. And so it was really exciting to know that the Ojibwe nation and the tribes and the bands there were actually excited about our project. And so since then, it's just been really exciting to see, and also sad. I really thought, art and music and dance and culture, that's what we're producing here. And it was, at the time, it's healing, but at the same time, it's a burden too, because we realized as we were going along that people wanted to donate. They wanted to contribute to this project. And at the beginning, we didn't want to, because we didn't want to set anybody back. But as Native people, we realized that Native people in any ceremonies, they want to give to be able to get blessings back.
I asked Aaron about the role that social media had in spreading news about the project.
The beginning of the pandemic, the beginning in March, I think TikTok, a lot of people had more time. A lot of people resorted to TikTok because it was a way to experience life without being outside the home. Or it was a unique way of seeing that through social media. And then as we were going with the project, we're kind of posting a little bit on our on Instagram and kind of Facebook and stuff like that. But then I kind of saw that it was kind of TikTok was an untapped resource. And so that's kind of what made us bring TikTok into mind. And then we started making videos. And I think people just loved the idea of healing, and they loved the idea of our project during this time. And I think that's what really sparked the interest of this.
My thanks to a father and daughter, Eugene and Aaron Tapahi, creators of the Jingle Dress Project. When a Native American activist tipped over a Christopher Columbus statue in front of the Minnesota State Capitol last summer, prosecutors faced a dilemma. How do you fairly try a man who broke the law, but also stood up for injustice? They found an answer using an ancient tool, peacemaking talking circles. The activist faced a maximum sentence of supervision for up to 5 years of probation, and he faced charges of criminal damage to state property in the first degree. Instead, he got 100 hours of community service. And he's not alone. Stuart Huntington reports on the rise of peacemaking.
The statue graced the Minnesota State Capitol grounds for decades, and for decades, Indians objected.
The Capitol belongs to all the people. And yet this statue represented a symbol of only particular people. And so the Native community had been asking how to please remove this.
So it was perhaps no surprise when a Native activist toppled the statue last spring. What came next was surprising. Instead of throwing the book at him, prosecutors used peacemaking talking circles to reach a resolution that acknowledged official missteps and spared the activist jail time.
I was thrilled by how this actually resolved itself. I expected a more traditional criminal justice model, and we didn't get anything like that. I've handled thousands of cases in this county, so the fact that we did something fundamentally different was exciting.
The prosecutor hailed the process.
I think it's actually one of the best tools that we have to transform our current American system of justice.
An adversarial system designed to pick winners and losers.
The idea is that everybody puts on their best case and then a neutral third party decides what's best out of the outcome, evaluating the two best cases. Well, certain times where fighting against each other isn't probably the best thing to do in order to resolve an issue, maybe most times.
The beauty of using this ancient circle process is all of these disparate voices can be heard. They can speak, and everybody has to listen to them. And I think that's critical because at the end of the day, what we need to be able to do is bind ourselves together as a society, and that traditional criminal justice system simply does not do that.
In tribal courts, traditional practices were shunted aside for Western legal systems. But now the ancient ideas are reappearing, spurred in part by the Native American Rights Fund.
Our ancestors somehow got along for centuries and millennia before and dealt with problems that come up between humans and resolved them and can continue to live together in community. So let's take a look at how they did that and see if we can institutionalize that process.
For a beacon, tribes look to the Southwest, where peacemaking practices never faded away.
The Navajo Peacemaking program has always been with us, even prior to the Western court system. We have a dual process, one the Western and then one traditional process.
And like spreading ripples in a pond, peacemaking circles are showing up in state courts too. One Michigan judge has employed them since 2013.
I'm pleased. I have no doubt it's where we need to go. I'm so thankful that, the resiliency of our indigenous communities that kept this alive and that they're growing and bringing it back and willing to share is phenomenal to me. I'm overwhelmed by the generosity that they would share to a state court judge this wisdom.
Judge Connors is working to spread peacemaking practices to other jurisdictions.
The experience has been, does it work? Yes. Can it be applied in state courts? The answer is yes. Does it help the people that are in court with conflict? Yes. When it works, Stuart, it's transformative as opposed to transactional. My Native friends say, how do you explain it to state court judges? And I say, well, we need to judge less and smudge more.
In St. Paul, Minnesota, Stuart Huntington, Indian Country Today.
Who is a citizen of the Cherokee Nation? Principal Chief Chuck Hoskin Jr. weighed in on that earlier this month when the candidacy of a descent of a Cherokee freedman was challenged by another office seeker. Hoskin pointed to a federal court decision from 2017 and to a Cherokee Nation Supreme Court decision that same year that recognized descendants of freedmen as full Cherokee citizens under the law. The rights of citizenship were guaranteed in an 1866 treaty. Freedmen are descendants of Cherokee-owned slaves from the 19th century. We've asked a Cherokee scholar to put this story into context for us. Joshua Nelson, a Cherokee citizen, is an associate professor at the University of Oklahoma. He is the author of Progressive Traditions, Identity in Cherokee Literature and Culture, published by the University of Oklahoma Press. If the tribal government, treaties, and the Cherokee Nation Supreme Court settled this, I asked, why is this still an issue?
My studies are around identity politics and identity theory. And so I'll try to address your question in that way. So, a key problem has to do with how it is that a group of people incorporates a group of strangers into their citizenship, right? And some of these terms are anomalous, right? So back when the Cherokees first start to interact with Black folks or with slaves, they're not a nation. And so the word citizenship is a little bit again, anomalous, right? So sometimes we project these things back and we don't have a clear sense of what we mean. And what slavery meant in the Cherokee Nation was always a little bit different too. So sometimes slaves would be adopted into families, for instance, to replace a lost loved one. Sometimes they were not protected by the clan system. And so, could be more or less killed with impunity. So how it is that you work these people who don't sort of descend directly from you into your larger body politic is an ongoing and troubling question. So one of the things that I'm most interested in is how in later years, particularly in the 19th century, the Cherokee Nation had all kinds of procedures and policies in place about adopting people into the Cherokee Nation. So, that extended from sort of the local question of marriage with somebody who was not Cherokee to much larger questions. And there were several times and places in which the Cherokee Nation adopted entire tribes to become eventually citizens, full citizens of the Cherokee Nation. And so, you've got these compacts with the Shawnees and the Delawares and others back in 1867. There was the adoption of the Catawbas and the Natchez back in the 1600s, the Tuskegees in the 1800s. And so, when you say, who's a Cherokee citizen? Well, it really kind of depends on when you're asking about. Now, because we've got some constitutional ambiguity here, there may be some folks who just want to see the matter a little bit more clarified officially in the internal documents to the nation. But there's going to be some question about, for instance, whether adopted Shawnees or Delawares could run for office. There again, a lot of the language from those earlier compacts and treaties is pretty clear. It says that those folks who were incorporated into the nation will have all the rights of Cherokee citizens.
I asked Professor Nelson what kind of conversations the Cherokee Nation is having about this.
Some of the conversation happens on social media. I'd venture to say most of it happens there. And unfortunately, as we've seen in other places, those conversations are not always taking advantage of a wealth of historical background material, right? There's not a lot of room for nuance. There's not a lot of room for complexity. There's a lot of room for anger and vitriol. And so, I think the nation, Cherokee and U.S. Is faced with a challenge about how to carry on a civil conversation with greater depth and complexity. It used to happen somewhat in the research, but, people don't really jump to reading scholarly discourse, and I understand that. But I think we would do well to engage in a more robust kind of journalism, right? So first of all, thank you for letting me weigh in here on your program. This is the kind of program that I think we need lots more of. So perhaps we can figure out ways that we can build it out and insist on, again, some civility in our conversations as we open up new spaces.
That was Joshua Nelson, a Cherokee professor at the University of Oklahoma. And we'll be right back with Hoops for the Future. Last weekend, the Heard Museum hosted its annual hoop dance competition, but things were a little different. Contestants submitted video and the voting was online. San Carlos Apache and MHA Nations dancer Tony Duncan won the overall competition. We'll leave you with the winner of the teen division, Dene dancer Kylene Jensen. That was Kylane Jensen, winner of the teen division of the Herd Museum's Hoop Dance competition. Join us online at IndianCountryToday.com for more stories and updates. From all of us at ICT, have a great weekend. I'm Mark Trahant.
You got to take a stand just because you know you can. Oh, you got to run, you got to run.
Indian Country Today is recorded at the Phoenix Indian School Visitor Center in Phoenix, Arizona.
This is Indian Country Today.